Hello and welcome to this week's edition of World Today, where we will be focusing on the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit that took place here in Samarkand in Uzbekistan. Now, there are many areas that were covered by the world leaders, including Russia, China and India. Bilateral meetings also took place on the sidelines of the summit that we will be discussing. But crucial to understand over here are the outcomes of the SCO Summit. New Delhi will assume presidency of the SCO in the year 2023, that's next year, and it is crucial to see how each leader welcomed this decision and also have extended support to India for hosting of the SCO Summit next year. The SCO covered 5 key areas of regional security, connectivity, trade, terrorism and radicalism and climate change. Terrorism was paramount on India's list. Prime Minister Modi raised it in the restricted SCO meetings. In his bilateral meeting with Russian President Putin, Prime Minister Modi called for end of the Russia-Ukraine war.
आज का युग युद्ध का है नहीं और हमने फोन पर भी कई बार आपसे इस विषय में बात की है कि डेमोक्रेसी और डिप्लोमेसी और डायलॉग, ये सारी बातें ऐसी हैं कि जो दुनिया को एक स्पर्श करती हैं। आने वाले दिनों में शांति के रास्ते पर हम कैसे बढ़ सके, उसके विषय में जरूर आज हमें चर्चा करने का मौका मिलेगा। आपका व्यू पॉइंट समझने का मुझे भी एक अवसर मिलेगा।
Я знаю вашу позицию по конфликту в Украине и ваши озабоченности, которые вы постоянно высказываете. Мы сделаем все для того, чтобы это все прекратилось как можно быстрее. К сожалению, только противная сторона, руководство Украины заявило об отказе от переговорного процесса, заявило о том, что хочет добиться своих целей военным путем, как они говорят, на поле боя.
India and China were working for better relations after Prime Minister Narendra Modi took office. But things took a turn for the worse after the LAC conflict, tensions at the border that continue. The body language here in Samarkand clearly shows that the leaders of both sides are absolutely not on the same page when it comes to the border tensions and resolving the issue and the standoff at the LAC. And it doesn't seem like normalization of ties between India and China is going to happen anytime soon.
Over 2 years since the world's biggest military standoff between India and China began in 2020, Prime Minister Modi shared the stage with Chinese President Xi Jinping, and the tension was palpable. There were no handshakes, no smiles, no pleasantries exchanged, just a cold hard look straight into the cameras. The icy interaction was in stark contrast to the last 2 Modi-Xi meetings. In 2019, when the two leaders met in Tamil Nadu's famed sculpture town, Mahabalipuram, there were handshakes galore. The two leaders even sipped coconut water together. The Modi-Xi bonhomie was at an all-time high in 2014 when the Chinese president visited Ahmedabad. The image of the two world leaders on a swing on the Sabarmati riverfront went viral. Much has changed since then. While the recent disengagement of Indian and Chinese troops from Gogra Hot Springs in eastern Ladakh is being seen as an indicator that there could be room for a thaw in the India-China relationship, New Delhi's focus remains on disengagement and de-escalation from remaining friction points, return to the April 2020 status quo.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping have come a long way. From reporting about the bromance, the bonhomie between the two leaders, to the cold chill of the India-China border areas now having trickled down to the leadership's body language here at the SCO Summit in Samarkand, clearly shows that it will take a long time for the relationship, the cold relationship between India and China to thaw. In Samarkand, Geeta Mohan for India Today. Let's listen in to India's envoy to Uzbekistan, Ambassador Manish Prabhat, who spoke to us on India's ties with Uzbekistan, India's importance and significance in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization grouping, as also concerns of India when it comes to the BRI projects and China's involvement and investments in Uzbekistan and Central Asia. Listen in. I'm being joined by India's envoy to Uzbekistan, Manish Prabhat. Ambassador sir, many thanks for joining us here on India Today. Let's begin with the SCO Summit. Iran is going to be a new member, and we're looking at centrality of Central Asia, as the External Affairs Minister of India put it. Add some perspective to how important the summit is and Iran joining the SCO.
It shows that SCO Summit in Samarkand is historic. If Iran is coming and joining, it leads to the expansion of the organization, and which leads to greater cooperation within the SCO space. Already 8 very important countries are members of the SCO, and the SCO has proved its usefulness and effectiveness so that more countries are interested in coming and listening to what is happening in SCO. As usual, of course, leaders are going to discuss what they would like to discuss in the SCO space, but going by what has happened in previous meetings, we would think that regional peace and security, humanitarian issues, issues of cultural exchanges, health, food, energy security, all these issues should be on table.
So you just spoke about regional peace and security. It seems like the SCO RATS, which is the Anti-Terrorism Forum, is an important part of the conversations that take place. India, Pakistan don't see eye to eye when it comes to the issue of terrorism. How then is this format, this forum really going to look at terrorism? How is India going to deal with Pak terror and Pak-based terrorists?
It's a very critical question, because we are in Tashkent, and SCO's body, which is called Regional Anti-Terrorism Structure, is actually based in Tashkent. So RATS actually shows the platform where all the 8 SCO countries sit together and discuss ways in which operationally fight against terrorism, extremism, radicalization, etc., and how to create that common space in which all the countries can work together. Of course, we all are against terrorism, and we have to look at all the ways in which we defeat terrorism and condemn every act of terrorism. So I think that in the SCO space also it is these issues are discussed, and we find ways how to work together on these kinds of issues.
Ambassador, Afghanistan has always been a very important part of the conversations when it comes to SCO. This time around, the Taliban is in control of Kabul, not been invited. How then is the SCO looking at taking forward conversations on Afghanistan?
We will see that what is the consensus on Afghanistan, but of course the countries have called for peace and stability in Afghanistan. India has particularly called for formation of an inclusive government in Afghanistan, protection of rights of women, minorities, children. And of course India is concerned about the humanitarian situation in Afghanistan. You know that India has sent a lot of humanitarian aid to Afghanistan. Uzbekistan has also done so. So there are ways in which we can work together on the issue of Afghanistan.
Uzbekistan is very uniquely positioned. I see a lot of Chinese presence in Uzbekistan in terms of investments, infrastructure, and we're looking at a lot of connectivity and infrastructure development projects. Is there any overlap between the Chinese projects that are a part of BRI and the SCO projects of connectivity that could overlap and could be a concern for India?
Connectivity has been an important question in SCO space, especially because 4 Central Asian countries are part of SCO, and for the landlocked Central Asian countries, the issue of connectivity is very important. There may be different options of working on connectivity. with group of countries working together, groups of countries working together. We all know that India is a very strong votary of making Chabahar port as the operational hub of establishing connectivity between India and Central Asia, and all the Central Asian countries understand that the big market of India becomes accessible to them if they trade with us through Chabahar. Of course, a lot of infrastructure development needs to be done around the port of Chabahar, and we are all discussing that. It is very good that Uzbekistan is also very strongly supportive of to join hands with us in working for the greater usage of the Chabahar port.
Finally, before I let you go, again, Uzbekistan and India quite uniquely positioned, because this is a grouping that more or less has become quite, and if you look at the larger picture, quite anti-West. India, not so much, and Uzbekistan is a country that America is trying to engage. So in all that, how do you see the engagement of America over here and India's position in balancing between Russia, China and America and the West?
India is very clear that, and this has been said at the SCO platforms also, that SCO is not an organization which is against any other bloc of countries or any particular country. SCO is a venture where all cooperate for constructive things and for peace and stability in the world. If there could be concerns of different countries on various kinds of issues, but the platform is there to talk about these issues. So India has always kept this position, and of course we would try to take SCO in a very constructive, correct space and position, and as the next chair also we would continue to do so.
As the next chair, given that India is going to be the next chair of the SCO, thank you so much, Ambassador Manish Prabhat, for speaking to us here on India Today. That's an exclusive conversation from Tashkent, Uzbekistan. In any multilateral summit, bilateral meetings do take place on the sidelines. India met with the leaders of Russia, Turkey, Uzbekistan and Iran. Significant meetings that took place, but speculation was rife about two meetings. Whether if Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be meeting Chinese President Xi Jinping or Pakistani Premier Shahbaz Sharif. Listen in to what Pakistan's Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari had to say on such meetings between India and Pakistan, the concerns of issues between India and Pakistan, and Masood Azhar particularly so, when Afghanistan now has entered the entire controversy of where is Masood Azhar. Listen in. This has to do with bilateral concerns. It has become a trilateral issue, Masood Azhar. Pakistan, Afghanistan and India. Now the Afghans are saying that it is Pakistan that is protecting Masood Azhar, and to get off the FATF list, Pakistan has to deliver on Azhar.
I think that as far as the issue of FATF is concerned, we've made incredible progress. Being the only country facing two action plans, Pakistan has been praised unanimously by member countries of the FATF for meeting with our obligations. And going forward, we are very optimistic that hopefully we will get through this phase of the FATF. But as I mentioned earlier, our resolve to combat terrorism and our resolve to combat extremism is not a result of any international pressures or any international organization. It is our own resolve. It is the desire of the people of Pakistan, of the younger generations of Pakistan, that we must combat this extremist mindset that is holding us back and defeat violent extremism for our own. So while obviously there is a FATF process and we are optimistic that we should get through this process, we will constantly be we will constantly be looking to combat violent extremism. As far as the individual that you are referring to, as far as our information is concerned, he's in Afghanistan.
A slice of history from Uzbekistan. Samarkand is the root of the Mughal dynasty in India, the connect between India and Uzbekistan. Timur Lane's mausoleum is where I went and saw not just the architectural delight, but also how you see the very same architecture in India, but it is Timur Lane's descendants who once went to India, conquered many parts of India and then ruled as Mughal emperors. We are here at Timur Lane's mausoleum. It is one of the most significant architectural sites here in Samarkand. and has a huge connect with India given the Mughal dynasty, the dynasty that comes from Tamerlane's lineage. I'm being joined by Victoria, who will tell us exactly what this entire mausoleum is all about in terms of the architecture, when it was built, the dynasty, so on and so forth. Victoria, but beginning with the architecture. Beautiful blues, we've seen this all through Samarkand, and we went to the Tilakari Mosque as well, but this is just another level of beauty. So explain to us, how did this come about?
Yes, you're very, very right, because this one is a unique dome also here, because it has ribs. None of the dome before 15th century had a rib. And it was built by our hero Timur, and he ordered to build it for his grandson, who should become a leader of his empire after his death. But unfortunately, Muhammad Sultan, this is the name of his grandson, passed away even during his life. And that's why Timur was really upset. And he decided, he ordered to build the mausoleum for him in the complex where we had madrasa on the left-hand side and hotel for Sufi, what we call it Honako, on the right-hand side.
How is the stone built? It's one whole stone of jade?
Yes, you're very, very right. Original tombs, they are downstairs in the crypt, and original headstones just in the praying room above. And Timur's most headstone was made from one piece of jade. And over here, what do you see? Everything is after the decoration, restoration works which we had in 1996. And we used here during the restoration works about 2 kilos of golden leaf. If you look up at the ceiling, it's very interesting, unique ceiling what we have here. The decoration of it was made from paper mache, because Samarkand was one of the main producers of paper since 8th century up to 17th century.
In Samarkand, Geeta Mohan for India Today. On Spotlight this weekend, we have an exclusive conversation with the French Foreign Minister and India Today's Raj Chengappa. Listen in.
Hello, I'm Raj Chengappa from India Today, and we have a very distinguished guest, the French Foreign Minister, Catherine Colonna. Foreign Minister, thank you for speaking exclusively to India Today magazine.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really privileged.
You've had a very long day. You've had a meeting with the Prime Minister, with the Foreign Affairs Minister, our External Affairs Minister, as well as the National Security Advisor. What would you say is your one big takeaway from these meetings?
We had a long day, that's correct, but I think we had a fruitful day, which is even more important. Yes, I was honored to be received by Prime Minister Modi, and I had long and useful, I believe, conversations with Dr. Jaishankar and with the National Security Advisors. We aim at giving an additional dimension to our strategic partnership. We've had a long-lasting partnership, a very fruitful one. We are reliable partners, and you know what? We forged it in 1998. And
I'm told you were with President Chirac at that particular time, and when the entire strategic partnership happened.
Exactly. I'm fortunate enough to have been there in 98. I was spokesperson for late President Chirac when we launched this partnership. And I'm fortunate enough today to see how much progress we've made 25 years later. So what a fantastic adventure. And we're building day to day our partnership for ourselves, for our, common strategic autonomy, but also for the region. We are really two powers who dedicate most of their efforts in the region to promote peace, stability, and development. And we're proud of that.
I'm going to come to that, but before that, a bilateral question, which is looking at India-France defense relations, which has been very strong. And one of the things India has been doing in recent years is to build self-reliance. How can France help India do that, particularly in the areas of, say, jet engines that India is looking for, fighter jet engines?
I think we already have a good record in defense and security, generally speaking, and in technology transfers. Yes, we did a lot in aviation, you know, the Rafale, and we delivered every single 36 of them. We're doing cooperation in submarines. And I did mention during my conversations the possibility that we use our competences. You know, both of them have technology, scientific skills and competences, generally speaking, so we can go one step further and, yes, maybe work on new developments for the future, including aviation.
So France is open for a lot of joint development with India to cooperate in any manner that is useful for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think our record among your partners is probably the record of being the most open country vis-à-vis India in terms of cooperation, including on sensitive issues, and in terms of technology transfers. So we must build on that, and we can do that. Still a huge potential.
Now, on terror, India and France has been victims of this. What is the kind of steps that jointly, there has been an announcement by both the Prime Minister and President of France that we would cooperate extensively on terror and counter-terrorism. What exactly can India and France do to help things out?
I think you're right. We can do a lot because we understand the suffering of those people or countries or families who have been attacked by terrorism, and it's across the world, something that is still going on. One key element is data, information, including intelligence. So we already, and I won't be specific, you understand, I cannot be specific on that, but we do share information. I believe it is useful, even beyond our two countries. And on the international scene, we do promote the new edition of No Money for Terror. The first one was held in Paris at the OECD. I was ambassador to the OECD then, so I can remember that. And we are building on this to make new steps and embark, if I may say, partners, other countries, in that fight against terror. Intelligence is key. Counteraction sometimes is necessary. But information sharing about the money and where the money comes from and where it goes to is a very useful tool. So we'll work together on that.
Now, there have been media reports that France and India are jointly or co-sponsoring a resolution, the UN Security Council, to declare global terrorists, particularly those that have attacked our countries. How much advance is that move, and do you see that happening a lot more?
It will take some time to consult and progress, but I think that, again, I come back to that, any nation or any group can be subject to terrorist attack. So it is not something just for India, or for France, or for, let's say, Europe or the Western world. It is something that should be a concern shared by every single nation in the world. So we do hope to promote that and to, build a few bridges whenever they are necessary.
That's all in this edition of World Today. I sign off from Samarkand in Uzbekistan. I'll see you in New Delhi. Stay tuned to India Today for all the latest news and updates.